Hi, so with Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about an interview where a prominent climate change activist, someone who's got a very well-rehearsed script and spent a lot of time perfecting their on-camera spiel. They were being interviewed by a journalist a relatively independent journalist, so a journalist that wasn't part of the globalist project and obviously hadn't been given instructions about what they're allowed to ask or not allowed to say and this sort of thing. So it was a real interview. Now, because these climate change activists are given soft interviews all around, their way of presenting the situation assumes or pre-assumes that the interviewer will not ask any questions or any difficult questions, or each question will simply be a segue into the next bit of propaganda they spout. And this is all very encouraging for them, so they can go on to the BBC in Britain, for example, and say, well, we all know the world's going to end in 5 years, and the interviewer will ask nothing. The interviewer won't say, well, how do we know that? On what basis? What's your evidence to support that? The scientists have said so. The scientists have settled. Well, what science? Can you mention you mean this guy who's paid by the United Nations, handsomely paid to produce propaganda that says the world's going to end? You mean that guy? So no difficult questions. All the interviews are very soft and very easy, and so the architecture of the nonsense they spout is designed around the soft interview scenario, which of course they get nearly all the time. So anyway, this activist is being interviewed by this independent journalist. Now, the journalist did ask questions, and when an assertion made, well, the world's going to end in 5 years, well, how do you know that? Well, all the scientists say, what, all the scientists? What scientists? Tell me one. Oh, I don't know. And United Nations says so. Greta Thunberg says so. So do you have any scientific evidence to say that in 5 years' time, the world's going to end? Oh, well, I don't know. Are you a Nazi or something? So they'll instantly go into name calling if you just don't agree with them and allow them to make these insane assertions. We all know that the world's going to end if we don't stop animal farming. We do. How do we know that? And so on. So the interviewer just asked the questions. The activist, the climate change activist, came back and tried to call names and well, if you don't believe it, it makes you a Nazi. This sort of thing, and it degenerated, I suppose, into a bit of a name-calling gig. The interview, which maybe wasn't the most edifying interview ever, but the point was the activist kept making these ideological assertions, and the interviewer kept asking for proof to back it up. I'm not accepting your assertions. You need to prove it. You can't just say the world's going to end in 5 years and then go off with a whole load of propaganda. You need to back this up and prove it. Now, if you've got better facts, if you've got the facts, then fine. Put those facts forward. But this idea that everyone just has to agree with you because you make this crazy assertion, that's not going to work in this interview. And so it was. I thought it was one of the very rare. I think it's the only one I've seen where the activist actually got questioned and was asked to back it up. The activist didn't like this, of course, because they're trained and used to very soft interviews, but they came away just making these ideological assertions, demanding that others accept it. Their only solution is not to win the battle of ideas or to prove their case, but that anyone that disagrees with them must be shut down, deplatformed, cancelled, and so on. So that's hardly a confidence inspiring there that your argument is so piss weak that you can only win it by shutting everyone else down. That's hardly a winning position. But what happened after this interview was the interview was posted on the news, the media outlet's website, and the overwhelming, in fact, I think it was certainly every comment that I saw was saying what a fraud the activist was, and how they really were just full of bullshit assertions and propaganda, and they couldn't back it up. They're just activists who are full of Marxist crap and so on. So that was but that same interview was posted on the website of one of the big climate action groups, climate activist groups. That exact same interview. They didn't edit it, or not the few minutes I looked at anyway. But the attitude by the people who were on the climate change website, the attitude was 180 degree, the exact polar opposite of what the other comments were. How outrageous this interviewer not accept these assertions as fact. How outrageous this interviewer asked questions. How outrageous this interviewer questioned the climate change ideology. How outrageous this interviewer wouldn't accept these facts without evidence, and so on. So it was the complete opposite, and quite an interesting view of how one side thinks versus the other. It's often said that the two, there's no place in the middle anymore, that both sides are on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of their interpretation of the same event, or in this case, the assertion about climate change. Now, whether climate change is or isn't the issue that they claim, whether they're massively exaggerating it, whether given how heavily it's funded by the globalists, and how it's used by the globalists to impoverish the West, then we can assume it's all, it's completely fake, and it has all been ginned up and juiced up as a wider propaganda issue. But and those people, the climate change activists, just the useful, gormless, twit, fucking idiot fools that are needed by the globalists to give it the false appearance of being grassroots somehow, and so on. But anyway, this is the difference that we just observing that difference. I was quite surprised how stark it was. The climate change activist website, that the interview was evil, pure evil, whereas the other side was the interviewer was asking a activist difficult questions that the activist had no answers for. Which proves that the activist is simply a propaganda pusher and nothing else. And with those two differences, and I've spoken to people on all areas of the globalist pushed change that they're forcing on society about mass migration. I was talking to a business guy, a CEO type guy, a few days ago, and he just, look, we've got to bring in masses and masses and masses of third world peasants, because there's such a huge labour shortage, and just can't find anyone to do the work, and there's just nobody who wants to work. There's nobody who's around. Oh, we just can't do it. And skills shortage. And that's all absolute crap. But he's utterly convinced that's the situation. Now the reality is more that he doesn't want to pay the wages that you need to get the workers. But that's a secondary issue. So the difference in views there is that he thinks mass migration is an essential, it's vital and essential, provided these fucking third world peasants don't live anywhere near him or don't come anywhere near his kids. That's a requirement there. Mass migration is fine, but Jesus, don't affect my quality of life with it, and it better not. So it's purely something that's seen as a convenience. I'm wondering how many of these climate change activists, other than paid NGO hustlers, how many of them are just people with completely empty, pointless, meaningless lives, and this activism gives their lives meaning. We're saving the world, this sort of thing, and that's a great tragedy that many young people, and other people too, but primarily young people, young girls, see the future as being so pointless and futile that the only thing they can do is run around the street waving placards. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.